Today on Comicstorian, we're going to find out the origin of Bruce Wayne in a medieval kingdom where he has Superman's powers. This is Comicstorian, where I take some of your favorite trade paperbacks and single issues, and I break them down into digestible bites to help you understand. Then I read them dramatically back to you. All alterations to the panels, text, and images are to prevent copyright problems, and all art is owned by its respective companies. We basically take your favorite storylines, cut out a lot of the fluff, and just get right to the point. This allows you to know what's going on in the current comic books, but also allows you to buy these issues to get more art, more story, more context. Support the industry today by going out and buying some of these books if you really do enjoy them at a digital retailer or a local store. Today we're going to be covering Dark Knights of Steel 3 and 4. Now this is all your favorite DC superheroes in a medieval style world. When we last left off, there was an assassination of Jor-El, the father of Superman, who ruled a kingdom. In retaliation, his daughter, Kala, known as Supergirl, went over and killed one of the princes in Black Lightning's kingdom. So we have two kingdoms going to war. And they're going to go to Amazon in this particular episode to talk to Diana and Queen Hippolyta. Also, while this is going on, Bruce Wayne, we discovered, is actually the son of Jor-El. He's basically Bruce Wayne, but with Superman's powers. And that's it. If you want to know what happened before this, I'll link the previous two videos down below, but let's get into Dark Knights of Steel 3 and 4. Amidst the recent attack on King Jor-El, word from across the land came that there was a strange star that came crashing to the earth in the lands of Magnus. Bruce's Robin sent for him to investigate the strange occurrence, but when Bruce presented the idea of leaving the castle, General Waller advised against it. Their king was slain. They must fortify themselves, and Bruce recites, "Come from the stars." He's not sure it's the best idea to ignore how the prophecy begins, and Cal dismisses the thought, stating that it's just superstition. He came from a planet that didn't have prophecies. Jester Quinn quietly says that the planet that he came from also got blew up. Maybe not the best example. Queen Laura tells Bruce that he will go and learn what this is and return as quickly as they can. They will wait to bury the king until their daughter is back with them, and he has returned. But while Bruce is setting out over in Amazonia, Lois informs Queen Hippolyta and General Philippus that she has received word that King Jefferson is on his way. When asked why, Laura explains that his son, Jacob, was murdered, though her sources are unable to determine who the attacker was. Philippus asks does she have a suspect, and Lois says that she'd suggest some kind of reprisal for Jor-El's assassination. But striking at the boy makes no sense. Within a few moments, a royal ship docks on the Amazon island. And the moment that King Jefferson sets foot on the sand, both Princess Diana and Philippus draw their blades, telling him to wait. As the king's guards raise their spears, Constantine smiles. Whoa, 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 whoa. Let's not have an international incident over a foot. Hippolyta tells Jefferson that he knows the rule of their land and he cannot step upon it. Jefferson pulls back, telling her, of course, if he can make a suggestion, perhaps they should chat on the ship. After a bit of back and forth over whether or not they can trust them, Hippolyta does go on the ship. And as they're all seated, Jefferson says that Jacob was gifted. He could summon the rain in ways that had not been seen for generations. Hippolyta tells him that she is sorry, but to the point. Did he have Jor-El killed? Jefferson says that he did. He couldn't ignore the threat that the Elves posed any longer. He had to act to save the world, and he knows that he was right to do so, having seen their power alongside their evil. Hippolyta asks whose power, and Jefferson clenches his teeth, stating that their daughter, Zala Jor-El, murdered Jacob. They begin to defend their former sister-in-arms, but it is explained that she struck at night and dropped Jacob from the sky. And she smiled as she murdered him. They know the prophecy, they know the threat that the Elves pose, and yet Amazonia will allow their daughter to consort with, but Hippolyta stops Jefferson, stating that he will not come to their shores and lecture her, and he will not involve Diana. They go back and forth a little bit more about the prophecy, stating that they know of it, and that the future being written down is dangerous. But Jefferson comes to the point, asking if she will stand with him. It's Diana that tells her mother not to do it, telling her that this is not a war that involves them, and so the king sets sail. As they are sailing out into the ocean, though, they run into Zala Jor-El, the daughter of Jor-El. Jefferson informs her that he wasn't prepared for her last time, but he is ready now, and his lightning cuts through the air with a booming crack-a-boom, which strikes Zala, sending her into the ocean. Constantine calls out, asking if he saw where she landed, but at that moment she flies up from under the ship, tearing it to pieces. Jefferson calls out to everyone to get to the lifeboats, but that's when there's a low schnick. Jefferson looks down to see a giant piece of wood shoved through his back and out his chest, and Zala tells him, "No more kings." She flies off, leaving the crew to fend for themselves. A king has passed, and a new queen will rule the land, Anissa. Later, over at the lands of Magnus, Bruce and Alfred ride through, seeing the aftermath of a battle, and Bruce says that he knows these people. They must be on guard. Whatever did this could still be here. Alfred gets down, telling him no, he doesn't think so. Whoever and whatever landed here is gone. In the earth, a green rock is protruding, and as Bruce leans in asking what is it, he feels himself getting weaker. Alfred throws the rock, and Bruce asks if it did not affect him. Perhaps it's because... But Alfred takes Bruce's hand. It's all right. I know. I know all of it, and it's time that you learned the truth. With Bruce's reaction to the strange green stone, Alfred places it in a small box for safekeeping, asking how he's feeling. Bruce says that he feels like he was beaten by a green rock. He spent so long stopping people with powers, but I'm just as bad as all of those freaks in the dungeon. Alfred closes the box, telling him that they are not all freaks, and neither is he. Not everything is so malevolent. Bruce tells him, I don't know who I am anymore. And Alfred informs him, you are Bruce Wayne, son of a king and queen, son of Thomas and Martha. Bruce sighs. No, I'm not. I don't understand how King Thomas could just pretend. Alfred looks off, telling him, he was watching the skies that day. He saw the L-ship burn across the heavens, and he heard the thunder that announced their arrival on this world. A new family on a strange new world, and if they were anyone else, they wouldn't have survived, but they thrived with their newfound powers. They built a home hidden away and watched the humans from afar, listening to the nearby kingdom at night, learning their customs and their language. Jor-El and Laura found happiness here, two survivors of a lost planet and a child born of this one. But one night came a rumble. The two tracked the tremors, feeling the earth, following the ripples in the earth with enhanced eyes until they found the source, Mount Kristoff. The volcano will erupt within 2 days, and Jor-El knew that they would have to rebuild again, but Laura was more worried about the nearby kingdom. They could rebuild, but the humans could not. Jor-El's concern was that if they make themselves known, then the world will know of them and their powers. But Laura suggested another way. The two scientists drafted plans, and they demonstrated how the Wayne's army could work to stave off the disaster if they started that day. So later, Jor-El, hiding his identity, provided those plans to the Wayne's advisor, warning him of the eruption and the method to counter it. But their advisor, Alexander Luthor, was stubborn and prideful and had his own beliefs, destroying the plans without informing the king and the queen. The next day, Jor-El entered the kingdom, asking why hasn't anyone evacuated? The mountain is about to explode, and Thomas asked Alexander if it's true. Alexander said that he had reviewed the ancient records, and the mountain has always been angry and never threatened them before. It was at that moment that the mountain erupted. Laura handed young Kal-El to Jor-El and walked through the guards' weapons, stating that they must act. Seeing the metal swords and spears break upon piercing the woman's skin, Thomas asked, "What are they?" And Laura smiled, stating, "Friends." But after leaving their son with the Waynes, Jor-El and Laura took off to the skies and protected the kingdom from its impending doom, revealing to the world their powers and abilities. And, well, the elves were loved by all except one. Luthor's name and title were taken from him, and he was banished from the kingdom. He was never seen again. Well, until. You see, Jor-El and Laura were hailed across the land as heroes, but feared by some. They brought so much knowledge to the world and gave the kingdom so much that they became close friends with the Waynes. Bruce attempts to scoff, stating that maybe they were more than friends, but Alfred continues, telling him that, well, to Martha, Jor-El was a god, and her husband gave all of himself to his kingdom. It was a single night, a single mistake, one that hurt the people they loved so much, a hurt that they might not have recovered from, but then he was born. Thomas couldn't father children, and the resentment that he harbored faded as the young child grew. Thomas loved you as much as any father has ever loved a son, Bruce. You healed all wounds. There was no anger left in them the day that they set out for Amazonia. That was until the Waynes were attacked by a green explosion, destroying Thomas and Martha's carriage. The one responsible realized the mistake, simply laughing, stating, "Martha? Whoops! Wrong carriage!" What they didn't realize was that Mount Kristoff, the volcano, also had a ring, one that whispered and twisted its wearer's mind, and the Green Man was born. That mountain created the cruel Joker, the man once known as Luther. As Jor-El went after Luther, Martha managed to live long enough to make a final decree, to give the kingdom to Jor-El and Laura if they would raise her son. But the issue is, in these times, the kingdom knew that Thomas could not sire a son. They knew that Bruce was actually a bastard. So, she asked them to protect Bruce until he was ready to rule, and the people were ready for him, and above all, to look after him, to love him in their place. Alfred tells him that he is the son of Thomas and Martha Wayne. It's just that he's also something more. So stop thinking that you're not worthy of them. They were hardly perfect people, none of them are. With Jor-El's murder, we are on the cusp of war, and as the only survivor of a war, I will do anything to avoid that again. So Bruce asks, "Is there a plan?" And Alfred says, "No, but I do have a king." And the battle between everyone is heating up. The Game of Thrones style storyline within the DC universe is about to get even better. If you want to know what's going to happen next, make sure you go to your local comic book store and pick up the next issue. Tell them that you want to pre-order this storyline as it's coming out. And don't forget to check back here at Comicstorian with a like, a subscribe, and hit that notification bell. We bring you a lot of comic book storylines right here.